Let's take a look at a newer panel in Lightroom, which is called color grading. Now, color grading is replacing split tone. So if you were used to using split tone, now it's called color grading. And to get to color grading, if you're, let's say, in basic panel, just look down and you will see color grading. Color grading is divided into 3 sections, or rather 3 circles. You have your shadows, you have your highlights, and you have your midtones. We can also take a look at this same panel in a different view. So if we click on this little black circle, then we're just working in the shadow color wheel, if you will. If we click in the middle one, we're in the midtone. If we click on the white one, we are in the highlights. There's also the last little circle, and that's the global color wheel, and I find it not all that useful. So let's take a look at the 3 circles, and we'll just talk in general about color grading. Now, what is color grading? Color grading is basically, in a way, color balancing, but you're thinking about the kind of mood or feeling that you're trying to evoke from your image. So here we have an image in Havana, Cuba, the typical Cuba camera car shot, but the cars here is very green, very bright green, and the colors of the buildings, they're kind of a little bit more neutral. So if you're trying to create kind of a mood or a look to this image, you could use some color grading. So I'll show you what I came up with, and then I'll show you how to get there. So this is what I came up with. I came up with basically a theme of yellow-green color combinations, okay? So let's see what we can do with the image. Now, of course, I'm assuming that you've taken your time and actually adjusted all the proper adjustments in the basic panel as far as color profile for your camera and all the other adjustments that you might have looked at. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to color grading right here. So we can do shadows first, or we can do highlights first. It really doesn't quite matter how you start. I like to try to work with my shadow highlight combination first before I go to midtone. And just so you understand, what is a shadow, what is a highlight? So if I hover over my histogram right here, you will notice that there's this light gray area in this part of the histogram. This is my shadow area. So if I move this slider back and forth, and I'll go ahead and just move it drastically. So you see, look at the alleyway there, or the street area there. That's a shadow. That is a shadow. I'll reset it, Command Z. Highlight. This is the highlight area right here in the histogram. So what is a highlight in this image? Let's take a look. I'll take it over to the dark area. I'll take it to the light area. So see, this is the highlight. So the highlight is pretty much the road and the building, the light color building. Okay, so now I know that. What should we do with the shadows? What kind of a classic color grading combination is if you take your color wheel and move it towards the blues, okay, and then you take highlights and move them over to the highlight area, okay. Now I'm doing a very drastic move here. I don't want you to do it this drastically. I just want you to see the combination. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this. Double click on adjust. Click, click. Okay. So if I wanted to add kind of a classic split tone or color grading, what I would do is I would take the middle circle and just slightly move it towards the blue. Now, what also you can do, if you add the shift key into the combination, you will see how I get this line right there. So now, if I take the shift key, I end up with this little circle on the edge. You can literally take the edge over to towards the blues. And then if you hold the shift key, now you're literally moving down this blue tone. So I'll just move it into this area just slightly. Another way to do this is if you move your circle in just a little bit towards the approximate color that you want, then hold the shift key, then you also get this line. So you can get your shadows a little bit more into the cyan blue color. If you hold the Option key or Alt key, what happens is you'll be able to move around that circle, circumference of that particular circle. So if you wanted to go more towards the blue, here I'll go in towards magentas and so on. So I want to stay, let's say, towards the greens. I want to go a little bit more green, so like so. So I'll leave it about there, okay? And then I'll go into the highlights and I'll do the same. Hold the shift key, like so, approximately. Maybe I'll move it a little bit towards magenta, no. Towards the yellows, no. A little bit towards the yellow, so something like possibly that. And then if I need to, I could go into the midtones, but we'll hold off on the midtones for a minute. Let me explain what these sliders down here do. Now, you have this blue tone in the shadows. If you click and hold on the slider down below, that's your luminosity. So I can add more dark tones to the luminance of this blue-green cyan. So look what happens. You see how that gets that much darker, that tone gets that much darker, or the opposite way. It could go a lot lighter. So if you're trying to get that kind of washed out look. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and actually add a little bit of density like so. And then over here, I'll add a little bit of lightness to the highlights. Like so. Now this range right here is the blending edge. So if I literally click and hold on the Option key, I can see if I go all the way to the right, it goes really yellow, right? Because it's towards mostly towards the yellows or towards the blues. So that's how well you want to blend those two colors. Now I'm going to let go of the Option key or Alt key, and you can just manually see how that balance is the balance between the two colors. It can go really blue or really yellow. So if I want to go more towards the yellow, so something like this. And then I could go a little bit warmer on the midtones. So there is my color grading look for this image. So that is a before and after. And that is a color grading for this particular image. Let's take a quick look at color grading on a landscape. So back to color grading. And again, the image has been adjusted as far as contrast goes and exposure and things like that. And I feel like this image is very, it's very foggy. So I want to make it look even foggier. So I'm going to go ahead and take it towards the blue. Let's go towards the blue here. There we go. Okay, and then I want to have a lot more warmth to these rocks and midtones. So I will go ahead and warm that up. And I'll warm up the shadows as well. Like so. And I'm going to deepen the tone in these rocks. Deepen the tone in the midtone as well. And I'm going to lighten the highlights. So, and it's actually a little bit artificial looking over here, so I'm going to pull back a little bit on the cyan Go a little bit more towards the blues. Like so. And so here's before and after. I'm holding the backslash key, before and after. And here's the before and after, the Y key next to each other. Like, of course, I can put a gradient tool up in the sky and bring that sky in a little bit and so on. But for color grading, this is what I got. Here's another color grading look. Let's take a look here. We'll select these two. So this is very much a washed out look. Here we go. Or we have something like that, and so on and so on. Here's one more. That is color grading.